Hey, how's it going, guys? Baron here again. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's ready for Classic. I know I certainly am. I had a little bit of time, and I wanted to make a little quick video on keybinds and really just how important they are, both to improving your play and also just you're going to enjoy the game a lot more whenever you got a good keybind set up. So that's what we're going to go over today. I'm going to show a guide from Wowhead. I can actually go ahead and pop that up now. It's written by a fellow named Kairi. I don't personally know him, but I have read the guide, and there's definitely some good information in there. I'll put a link to the URL in the description, but it also shows finger placement and highlights some of the more uh, or some of the better keys to use that you should really prioritize some of your spells that you use more often, and then also some of your spells that you'll need to have quick access to, of course. But yeah, I'll definitely I'll put a link to this guide in the description. I would definitely recommend you take a look at it. Anyways, going forward, as I said, I'm just gonna kind of show you guys how my keybinds are set up and how uh, the thinking behind how I've got mine set up and everything. Initially, when I started playing, like probably a good number of you, I got my 1 through 6, and that was pretty much all that I used. I started out playing a hunter, and then later into Nax, back in vanilla, I started needing more. So I would use the as a hunter, I would basically have a ranged bar, and then I would hold shift and uh, mouse wheel and get my second bar, and my second bar was like my melee bar. So now I went from 6 to having 12, and then when I got into TBC and started doing a lot of PvP, I really started to say, all right, this ain't cutting it. I have to have more keybinds. I have to be able to hit these spells quickly. I have to be able to, I got to get faster. And at that point, it pretty much just exploded where I can't really. It really bothers me if I have to click anything. So just to hit on it real quick, why should you do keybinds as opposed to clicking? It should be pretty obvious, but in case it isn't, if I want to click a spell, for example, I want to click this heal down here. I'm taking my eyes off what I'm doing around my character, and I'm having to click this spell. And on top of that, if I'm healing, I'm having to go back and forth. I'm having to click somebody to heal and click the spell. Okay, so it should be pretty obvious why that's bad to everybody. That's requiring that's taking away a lot of your attention off what you should be doing, and putting it down in the bottom of your screen. Or I've seen a lot of healers, they have their healing bars in either the corner of the screen. That's also bad because you're having to click a frame that's out in the bottom left corner of your screen or the bottom right. That's taking your attention off of the middle of your screen, which is where your character is at, and that's where you want most of your situational awareness to be focused. So, that being said, make sure you're always keeping that in mind. My health bar is always right here to my right of my character. I want it super close so that I'm hyper aware of it at all times. As most of you know, I usually raid lead, so I'm always wanting to be hyper aware of what the raid health is looking like. So my raid bars are right next to it, because what the raid looks like most of the time is going to dictate how I play. So that's a little bit of a layout there for how I have things set up and why. Definitely at some point I'll move. I'll be honest, I'm a little bit lazy when it comes to add-ons. So obviously I should have some kind of a bartender or bongos set up for all of them, but I'm not super worried about it, as I don't even really look at them anyways. I know all the keybinds, so yeah. But I don't disagree that would be an improvement to my current UI. That said, um, we'll get into some of the keybinds now. Starting off, the thing that a lot of players slack on. Well, let me back that up. Okay, first things first. What should I keybind? And that's very simple. If it's going to be used in combat, if there's the ability, there's a chance it's going to be used in combat, it needs to have a permanent, unchanging keybind associated with it. For example, if I'm trading out things like, I don't know, Sapper Charge with Taunt, or I mean, you could be anything. I'm trading out spells. I'm cheating myself out of muscle memory there. There'll be times where you have to stop and actually think about it. Did I rebind it? Perhaps you forgot to rebind it. Whatever. Everything needs to have a permanent, unchanging keybind. Um, there's a few exceptions to this. A couple would be like when I'm playing Feral, sometimes I'll switch out a mana pot, for example, like a Frost Protection Potion or a Fire Protection Potion, because I know that I'll need that. I don't really want to have a keybind for a Frost, Fire, Shadow, Arcane, Nature potion. That seems a little excessive. But um, so that's an example of something that it would be okay to swap out as needed per fight. But as far as your individual abilities, you need to have a permanent, unchanging keybind for each one. And obviously, we're about to play Classic, so it's a perfect time for you to get a good keybind foundation and build upon it while you're leveling. So, starting out with what I find to be the number one thing people like to be either lazy on or slack on is their self-save consumables. I mean, these are things that will need to be used at an instant, and there's really no time to think about it. So, trying to click a health stone, trying to click a health potion, or trying to click a limited invuln potion, that's 100% the wrong way to do it. That's not how you want to do it. I actually got these keybinds from my old main tank, Wakefield. Um, he always said that he used the F keys for his self saves, and I found that it worked well for me too. F1 is always my health stone / whipperoot tuber macro. So if I don't have a health stone on me, it will use a whipperoot tuber. So I always have something there. Um, F2, that's always a healing potion, or in this case, a major rejuve potion. Either one's fine. So if I really I'm getting trucked, I need a heal, it's not coming. I'm gonna reach up there and I'm gonna spam the hell out of that F1 F2 key, and drop a heal on myself there. F3, I don't like this keybind as much as it's more towards the middle, and every now and then I have an issue finding it. The reason for that probably is that I don't use it nearly as often as the other keybinds. So a lot of times I'll leave it empty, but every now and then I'll put like a protection potion there or something. And F4, about midway through vanilla on P servers, that's when I really started using limited invulnerability potion a lot. This is really a super, super clutch potion. Every single person in the raid should at least keep one stack with them, and it will take you some time to develop good muscle memory and also good knowledge of when you should use it, because it's more of a preventative potion rather than a reactive potion. So there's a lot of times that you'll need to use it. You'll need to know ahead of time when you need to use it. Like right when you get aggro, you'll need to use it obviously before the boss walks all the way across the map, gets out of position, and kills you. So it's a little tricky on when and when not is a good time to use it. So that will take some training, but it is absolutely advised that you find a good keybind for limited invulnerability potion, and that it's unchanging and you don't mess with it. You're just really good at it, and obviously it's really good in PvP as well. Makes you immune to all physical damage in 6 seconds, and mobs that are bosses that would, if you get threat, you can pop that and they'll go back to whoever had aggro for at least the duration, which may get you, may end up saving you. So F4, that's always my limited invuln potion. Moving on. So general keys that you're going to be spamming. For example, heals, um, spells, wrath, frostbolt, something like that. It's my personal preference to not have a modifier associated with that key. So, healing touch, I just want to be able to spam healing touch if that's what I'm doing. Um, I don't want to have to, put a modifier on it. There is a certain, obviously I have a middle rank healing touch here that I'll use Alt 1 for. But I don't end up using that too often, and it's not a real issue. So that's just something to keep in mind. If it's something that's going to be spammed or used very, very frequently, I personally prefer to not have a modifier on it. So what are your primary non-modifier keys? So obviously tilde, right here, tilde. I have fairy fire to that. This key is always my. Well, I don't really have a spell interrupt on a druid. I have feral charge. I don't really count that. But if I'm playing a rogue, kick. If I'm playing a warrior, pummel, shield bash. If I'm playing a mage, counterspell. If I'm playing a warlock, uh, spell lock. This is tilde. That's always my spell interrupt key. Spell interrupts have to be executed very quickly, and so you want a very good keybind for whatever you end up assigning that to. While I'm mentioning that, if you're playing several different characters, try to match up similar keybinds. For example, I guess the best would be a mage. If you're going to do frostbolt on one, obviously shadowbolt would be the same if you're going to play a warlock. If you're going to be playing the mage, polymorph would be the same key as fear if you're on the warlock. So hopefully that makes sense there. Moving on, 1 through 6. I don't like 6 is a little bit uncomfortable, but it's definitely manageable. Anything past 6, so 7, 8, 9, 0, whatever, you can't really. For me personally, I can't count those as keybinds. I don't want anything to do with those. I do have them over here on my bar, but they're just it's for a macro, so pretty much just ignore that they're there. Um, Moving on, a lot of people forget to unbind Q and E from movement keys. So these are extremely important keybinds. Q and E, they're extremely well placed. Um, so if I'm playing a pet class, Q will usually be my pet attack, and E will usually be my pet follow. In a non-pet class, like a healer, it'll usually be my cleanses or my cleaning abilities, as it is on the druid. Q is decurse, E is abolish. Um, so yeah, it depends on what kind of class I'm playing, but those are two very, very, very valuable keybinds. Um, Moving on, below WASD you have Z, ZX, CVB. B I always use to put skull on targets, though obviously I didn't bind it right now. But yeah, B is only is to assign skull to a target. Uh, Z, uh, ignore what spells there. But anyways, Z is um, that's a great keybind. It's easily accessible. For example, in my warrior, it's execute. X, another really great keybind. I don't end up using it much on the druid, but on the warrior, it is blood rage. C is I usually put a bolt spell there, especially if I'm playing. For example, if I was playing priest, C would be smite. On the druid, C is wrath. However, if I'm playing mage, C is my cone of cold. That's just how I personally like it. C is a great keybind. V is usually I'll put, for example, if I'm playing hunter, V will be my wing clip. If I'm playing warrior, V will be my hamstring. So that's what I usually prefer for V. And then I already went over Q and E. Moving on, to the right side of WASD, R. I'm sure there's a couple of you that are going to be watching this. You still have R bound to reply. That telling you, you're missing out. R is an amazing keybind. It's very well placed. R is always my taunt key. So I spam my R button. It's going to put me in bear form, and bam, I'm ready to taunt. So R, great keybind. T, also a great keybind. In this case, it happens to be my power shift macro. Y. Y is about as far over as I want to go. Y is always my racial ability for whatever character I'm playing. In this case, it's Shadow Male because I'm Night Elf. If I'm human, it's going to be Perception. If I'm Dwarf, it's going to be Stone Form. Y is always my racial ability. And Shift Y is my Bandage. So those are two keybinds that don't change regardless of what class or race or faction I'm playing. Moving down some, the next row we have F. Personally, I prefer to always leave F as it is naturally. It's your assist key. So if I want to target a mob and hit F, it will it will assist onto what it's targeting, or it'll assist onto the player that it's targeting. G, that's kind of a miscellaneous keybind for me. Sometimes, for example, Alt G is my Mark of the Wild or Arcane Intellect or Fortitude, whatever. Alt B, that is my Omen of Clarity, or you could put Thorns there. You could put Divine Spirit there. You could put Shadow Protection if you're a priest. Whatever your secondary buff is, that's something that I usually put for that keybind. H is not a keybind I typically use. That one's a bit far of a reach for me. I really don't like to go further than G. But I guess if you could play with that, that might be something you might be interested in. And I already went over the bottom row, ZXCVB. I really don't prefer to go further than B. I guess you could go to N, but B is really good because it's where my thumb naturally rests on the space bar, right above it. And then obviously I got to go to M sometimes for the map, but I could see where you can make N or B, or obviously I use B a lot, but I could see where you can make N a decent keybind rather than using, we don't need a keybind for our talent tree, of course. So yeah, that's that. Another one that a lot of people don't do for whatever reason is remapping your mouse buttons to modifier keys. So, for example, you can see here that my sapper charge is Alt 2, but I'm not hitting Alt with my thumb and then hitting 2. I'm hitting a key on my thumb button, or I'm hitting a thumb button for my mouse, which is bound to Alt, and then with my left hand I'm hitting 2. So just by remapping, let's say I'm the type person that Alt, it just seems very weird to me. I don't like it whatsoever. I don't want to use it. Then cool, remap Alt to one of your thumb buttons on your mouse, and now I have a different key, a different assignment that I can add to ZXCVBN, QE12345 and tilde TFGR, Y, all that. So just by changing one of my mouse thumb buttons to an alternate key, I've just created like 15 keybinds, just like that. So for whatever reason, a lot of people don't do that, but that's something that helps me out a great deal. So Tranquility, Alt T, that all I'm doing is hitting the thumb button on my mouse and then hitting T. So that's a tip for some of you. Alt G, same thing, hitting the thumb button on my mouse and then hitting G. You can do that with whatever, if you want, if Alt is comfortable for you, and you don't want to do that, then you can pair modifier keys. You could say, okay, I'm going to bind a thumb button on my mouse to Alt Shift or Control Shift or Control Alt, whatever. So that's some food for thought there on how you can set things up for that. But another thing I'll get into is for stance required abilities. This is obviously talking towards a druid or a warrior. When I play my druid or I play my warrior, I don't bind bear form. I don't bind cat form. I bind, well, that's technical. I do bind power shift, which is going to get me into cat form. But outside of that, I don't bind the actual form, or in the case of the warrior, I don't bind the stance. I bind the stance to the ability. So, for example, like I just went over, if I want to get into bear form, I'm just going to hit. I got multiple different ways I can do that. I can hit Shift 4, which is my bash feral charge one button key. If I want to, I could do demoralizing roar. That's Alt 5. That'll put me in bear form. Or I could just hit R. and that'll put me in bear form. So that's how I'm getting into my different forms. Is I'm not hitting. I mean, actually think about what's happening. If I have to get into bear form and then taunt, I'm having to hit two different keybinds. I'm having to hit my bear form keybind to get into taunt, and then I'm having to hit a different keybind to actually use my taunt. So you're killing two birds with one stone there by mapping your stance or form required abilities into a single key. Same thing for warrior. If I want to mocking blow, that can only be done in battle stance. So shift 1 is it's moonfire for my druid, but it's mocking blow for my warrior. You know, if I want to mock something, I just spam the hell out of shift 1. It'll put me in battle stance and it'll mock the target. If I want to get back into defensive, I'll hit disarm or I'll hit taunt, one or the other. So that's another word about about stance classes like druid or warrior. I highly recommend binding those abilities to go ahead and put you in whatever form or stance is required to use that ability. It'll just create that much more uh, you know instinct and muscle memory for that ability, and it will speed things up for you as well. And things will just feel a lot more fluid for you. Uh, what else can we hit on? I can go over some of the other stuff. So Shift R, that is either sometimes it'll be Nature Swiftness or Rebirth. I really never played full Resto on the Druid, so I just left Rebirth as Shift R. But if I was going to be using Nature Swiftness some, I would have to find a new keybind for Rebirth. I'd probably move it to Shift C, something of that sort, and make room for Shift R for Nature Swiftness, which if I'm playing a Paladin, my Shift R is Lay on Hands. So you can kind of see how those are somewhat similar. F5, sometimes it's like a trinket, or in this case it's an innervate. A lot of times I like to put my life-giving gem on my warrior as F5. For whatever reason, it just really works for me. I like it. But yeah, Shift R is my shield wall or my 30-minute cooldowns on my warrior. Tilde, like I said, that's my spell interrupt key, but on my druid, it's my fairy fire key. Shift F is always my PvP trinket, regardless of what class, race, faction I'm playing. Shift V is battle shout on my warrior, and it is thorns on my druid. You can see how those are they're both kind of like a buff key. I went over F1 through 4. Okay, here we go. Alt Z, X, C, and V. Now for my druid, Alt V is my travel form key, and Alt Z, though it's not there currently, is Alt Z, X, and C are weapon swap macros. So Alt Z will usually be my two-hander, Alt X will usually be my dual wield macro, and then Alt C will usually be like my sword and board macro for my warrior. So that's kind of how it's set up on the druid. I don't have the key there, but for example, Alt Z would be my Blessed Karaji Warhammer and my Tome of Knowledge, and then Alt X would actually be my healing weapon and my healing offhand, and then Alt C would be my Warden Staff. So there you go. Moving on, Control 1 through 6. Just some random stuff there. I usually put potions, or you can put whatever you want there. These are not keys that I would say they're kind of towards the average end. They're not my favorite. I don't really like control. Control feels a lot better towards the right side of WASD, like Control R, Control F, Control T, Control E. Those are a lot more favorable to me than trying to hit something like maybe Control Q or Control tilde, though I do use the Control plus number keys. But Control is a little bit of a weird one for me. I would definitely prefer Shift. Shift is a lot more natural for me than where Control is sitting with my keyboard and what I'm used to. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to go over keybinds and show you kind of how my setup is, go over all the keybinds that I use, And another example of those stance required or form required abilities is dash. If I need to sprint, I can just spam and it's going to put me in cat form and I can sprint. And then I need to taunt something, I can pop into bear form and taunt it. So there you go. One more last thing is Q and E are my cancel form uh, macros. So if I'm ever in cat form or bear form, I need to get out of form, and it's not an ability that is already macroed to do so, to cancel form, then Q and E will get me back into caster form, and then I'm good to go with using my healing spells and such. But anyways, guys, like I said, I'll put that guide that fella wrote on Wowhead in the description. I hope this helps some of you. I really, really, really would highly advise that you guys work on your keybinds. While you do it while you're playing classic. Do it while you're leveling, so you can go ahead and get used to it. That's the way to learn a new keybind, is to put something there and make yourself use that keybind. Like I said, which one? F3. I was saying I wasn't too comfortable with F3, but I bet if I put something like shred or claw or maul or something, I bet if I put that on F3 and if I played with it long enough, I'd get a hell of a lot more strong. I'd get a lot more stronger with it. So it's just like anything else. You just got to use it. You got to practice with it, and once you're on your way, you'll never look back. It just if you're clicking things that are going to be used in combat, you're doing it wrong. 100% you're doing it wrong. So I hope this gives you guys some motivation to work on that. And if you got any questions or you got any ideas you want to run past me, please hit me up on Discord or in the comments. I'll try to be as useful as I can on providing you guys with some information, or at least pointing you in the right direction. But anyways, looking forward to Classic. Hope this helps some of you out, and it helps improve your play for Classic. Looking forward to it, guys. Have a good one, and I'll see you next time.